For 7 years I saved. 7 years of skipping takeout when I craved it most, of wearing shoes until the soles gave out, of saying no to vacations even when my friends sent postcards from beaches and mountaintops. Every time I wanted to give in, I thought about the vision that kept me going. My own home. Not just a roof and four walls, but a sanctuary. A place where I could finally breathe and say, I made this happen. The day I signed those papers, I swear my hands were trembling so hard I could barely hold the pen. The realtor slid me the keys, and when they jingled into my palm, I felt the weight of every late night, every sacrifice, every lonely moment of discipline. This wasn't just a house. It was 7 years of my life turned into brick and wood. I spent the first few days wandering through empty rooms, barefoot on cold tile, whispering promises to myself. I painted the walls in colors that felt like sunlight and warmth. I planted flowers outside, imagining them blooming into something that would welcome anyone who walked up the path. I poured myself into every detail, because this wasn't just shelter. It was love materialized. Naturally, I wanted to share it. I wanted the people who raised me, the people whose approval I had always quietly craved, to walk through those doors and say, "We're proud of you." So I planned a housewarming. I sent out invitations, crafted a menu, even laid out extra blankets in case anyone wanted to stay overnight. I imagined laughter filling the living room, the clinking of glasses, children running through the hallways. The day came. I lit candles in every room, baked bread so the house would smell of comfort, and set the table with care. I put on music, not too loud, just enough to feel celebratory. And then I waited. And waited. The clock ticked. The bread cooled. The candles burned lower. The music became a hollow background to silence. My phone never buzzed with "We're on our way," or "We're running late." When it finally sank in that no one was coming, I walked through each room alone. My dream house, the one I had poured my soul into, echoed with absence. I could have let that moment poison the walls. I could have decided that my home was empty because my family chose not to show up. But as I stood in the living room, surrounded by the quiet glow of lights I had hung myself, I realized something powerful. This house wasn't built on their presence. It was built on my persistence. Their absence didn't erase my effort. It didn't erase the nights I went without so I could someday walk through this very door. So I poured myself a glass of wine. I sat at my own table and I toasted myself. And later I invited friends, neighbors, co-workers, the people who showed up not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Slowly, the house filled with warmth, with laughter, with the kind of family you find along the way. The dream I saved for 7 years was never about who clapped for me when I reached it. It was about proving to myself that I could. And when the people you expect don't show up, don't let it break you. Let it remind you that you are enough, your effort is enough, and your dreams deserve celebration, even if the only person raising a glass is you. Because sometimes the most beautiful kind of love story is the one you write with yourself. For 7 years I saved. 7 long, grinding, unpredictable years. Every choice I made was filtered through the same question. Will this get me closer to my dream? There were nights I stood in the grocery store with 2 items in my hand. A small treat I wanted, and the cheaper, simpler option I needed. Every time I chose the latter. When friends went out for dinners, I learned the art of excuses. I'm busy. I already ate. Because the truth was I couldn't justify spending what I was trying so desperately to build. My shoes wore thin, and I patched them instead of replacing them. Birthdays passed where my gifts to myself were not things, but deposits into an account labeled home. I watched others buy new phones, new cars, and shiny things that lit up their lives for a while. But I held on to the thought of something bigger, something permanent. There were nights I lay in bed exhausted from work, wondering if I was crazy. 7 years is a long time to keep a dream alive. Doubt whispered constantly. What if you never make it? What if something happens and all this saving is for nothing? But every time those thoughts crawled in, I pictured myself turning a key in a door that was mine. I pictured mornings where sunlight would stream through curtains I chose, evenings where I could sit on my own couch without worrying about landlords or leases or losing a place I called home. The sacrifices piled high, but I stacked them into a ladder, climbing step by step. Vacations. Kip. Nights out. Where? Luxury items. Non-existent. I learned how to find joy in little things. Cooking at home, long walks that cost nothing, reading borrowed books instead of buying new ones. My life became a quiet rhythm of discipline and dreaming. Then came the moment. 7 years compressed into a single day at the bank and the lawyer's office. I sat across from a realtor who slid a stack of papers in front of me. My hands shook so badly that I almost dropped the pen. I don't think I'd ever been so aware of my own breathing. Every initial, every signature felt like a promise kept to myself. And then those keys. Small, ordinary, jingling on a ring, but to me they weighed more than gold. I closed my hand around them and felt the gravity of all the choices I'd made to get here. Every skipped dinner, every patched shoe, every late night, every whisper of doubt. It was all right there, gleaming in the metal pressed against my palm. When I walked through the front door of my home for the very first time, there was no furniture, no curtains, not even the smell of someone living there yet. But I stood in the empty silence and felt like the world was finally listening to me. My footsteps echoed, and instead of loneliness, I heard triumph. I ran my hand along the walls, as if to say hello, as if the house and I had both been waiting for this meeting. I spent the first week in that house like a child discovering a secret world. I would wake up earlier than usual just to wander through the rooms, letting my bare feet press against the cold tile and hardwood, memorizing the creaks in the floorboards, the way light shifted from golden to pale as the day went on. I'd stand by the windows with a cup of tea, watching the neighborhood stir awake, and I would think, this view belongs to me now. I poured myself into every corner. I painted the walls carefully, choosing colors not because they were trendy but because they made me feel something. A soft cream for the living room, the kind that reflected light like warmth itself. A calm blue for the bedroom, where I could finally rest without the weight of someone else's rules pressing down on me. Even the smallest choices, a doorknob, a lampshade, the shape of a vase, felt monumental. Each detail whispered, this is yours, this is your story, this is your home. I planted flowers in the small garden patch out front. At first, the dirt felt foreign, but as I dug my hands into it, I imagined those flowers blooming into a welcome sign for anyone who might one day visit. I scrubbed the kitchen counters, not because they were dirty, but because I wanted them to shine. I arranged my books on shelves, lined them up in neat rows, and stood back just to smile at how they finally had a place where they belonged, just as I did. Every sound, every smell was an affirmation. The faint scent of fresh paint, the creak of the back door when I opened it to let air flow through, the hum of the refrigerator I had saved months to buy. It all felt like proof that I had turned sacrifice into something real. Even sitting on the floor with takeout on the first night, surrounded by boxes, felt sacred. The house was empty, yes, but it was a fullness I had never felt before. I walked from room to room, not just seeing walls and ceilings but seeing possibilities. In the living room, I imagined laughter bouncing off the walls, the soft buzz of conversation during gatherings. In the kitchen, I pictured myself trying new recipes, filling the air with the smell of garlic and spices. In the guest room, I saw my nieces and nephews running in, tumbling onto the bed, leaving behind the chaos of family. Each space became a canvas where I painted futures I had only ever dreamed of. This house wasn't just shelter. It wasn't just a milestone. It was love shaped into something solid. It was my love for myself. The version of me who didn't give up when it was easier to let go. The version of me who believed that life could be better if I kept working toward it. Every brick, every nail, every brush of paint held the story of my persistence. And as I sat on the steps one evening, watching the sky shift to pink and gold above the roof that now belonged to me, I realized I wasn't just living in a house. I was living inside proof that dreams, no matter how long they take, no matter how much they demand, are worth every ounce of effort. This wasn't just a building. This was home, a home I had built out of discipline, hope, and the kind of love that doesn't wait for others to give it. You grow it yourself. Naturally, I wanted to share it. A home is not just walls and rooms. It's meant to be filled, meant to be alive with voices and stories. For weeks, as I unpacked boxes and set things in their places, I imagined my family walking through the door. I could see my mother standing in the kitchen, asking about the new appliances, my father examining the yard like he always did with houses, pointing out where I might add a bench or a tree. I pictured my siblings sprawled across the living room, teasing each other, arguing over who got the bigger seat, kids running down the hallway leaving trails of laughter. So when it came time, I planned. I wrote out invitations with care, slipping them into envelopes like they were love letters. I called each of them, my voice brimming with the kind of excitement I couldn't hide. "Come see my home," I said. "Come celebrate with me." The words felt like a dream finally spoken into the world. I made lists. I decided on food that reminded us of childhood, dishes that would tie the new home to old memories. Roast chicken like Mom used to make, baked macaroni the way we had on birthdays, fresh bread so the house would carry that warm, welcoming smell. I polished the silverware I had been gifted years ago and never used, ironed the tablecloth until it lay smooth without a single crease. I bought candles and set them in every room, wanting the house to glow as if it, too, were celebrating. In my mind, I replayed the evening over and over. The knock at the door, the rush of footsteps, the way their voices would fill the space. I thought about the moment I'd hand my parents a glass of wine and watch their eyes as they looked around, taking it all in. I thought about the hug I would give my sister when she said, "I'm proud of you." It wasn't just about showing them a house. It was about showing them that all those years of sacrifice had led somewhere beautiful, somewhere worth every moment of waiting. The night before, I barely slept. I walked through the house one last time, adjusting flowers, making sure every chair was set at just the right angle. I placed blankets in the guest rooms, fluffed pillows, and left little touches. A chocolate on the nightstand, fresh towels folded neatly, as if preparing for the arrival of honored guests. My heart was beating with joy, not nerves, because I believed without question they would come. On the morning of the housewarming, sunlight streamed through the windows, spilling across the living room like a blessing. I opened the curtains wide, played music softly as I cooked, and let myself imagine their cars pulling into the driveway, the chatter, the noise, the kind of chaos only family can bring. I thought of the way it would feel when I finally saw my home reflected in their eyes, when I saw their smiles and felt their arms around me. I wanted to share not just a place but a victory. To let them walk the same floors I had fought so hard to own, to touch the walls that carried the echo of my persistence. More than anything, I wanted them to feel included in the dream I had finally made real. The day arrived and everything was ready. The table was set with care, candles flickering softly in their holders, music humming gently in the background. The smell of fresh bread floated through the air, warm and inviting, wrapping the house in a kind of comfort that felt like an embrace. I glanced at the clock, heart racing with every tick, waiting for the sound of car doors outside, for footsteps on the path, for the knock at the door that would bring my family in. Minutes passed, then an hour. I told myself they were running late, that traffic must have slowed them down. I paced from the kitchen to the front window, peering out at the driveway, expecting headlights any moment. I straightened the cushions, checked the oven, refilled the water glasses even though no one had touched them yet. Hope clung to me stubbornly, whispering, "They'll be here soon, just wait." But the silence grew heavier. The bread cooled on the counter, untouched. The candles burned lower, wax dripping slowly down their sides. The music, once cheerful, now sounded hollow in the emptiness, like it was mocking me. I checked my phone, refreshing it over and over, but there were no messages, no missed calls, no explanations. Just silence. The house felt larger with every passing moment, the walls stretching wide around me, holding not laughter but absence. I sat at the table, staring at the empty chairs I had so carefully arranged, each one a reminder of someone who wasn't coming. My chest ached with something sharp, a kind of loneliness that cut deeper because it wasn't just about being alone, it was about being forgotten. When the truth settled in, it didn't come with a bang. It came quietly, like a dimming light. They weren't coming. No excuses, no apologies, no late arrivals with hurried hugs. Just nothing. My dream home, the place I had worked 7 years to build, stood ready to welcome them, and they chose not to walk through the door. I moved through the house in silence, blowing out the candles one by one. Their smoke curled into the air, fading fast, leaving behind only the faint smell of extinguished wicks. The bread had gone hard at the edges. The food sat waiting like an unanswered question. Every room I stepped into echoed with what I had imagined. Laughter, conversation, warmth. But those sounds existed only in my head. It was supposed to be a night of celebration, of connection, of belonging. Instead, it became a night where I learned what absence really feels like. A night where the emptiness of the house mirrored the emptiness left by the people I thought would be there. And as I stood alone in the living room, surrounded by the glow of lights I had hung myself, I felt the sharp edge of disappointment settle deep in my chest.